Ladies and gentlemen, your mornings are the birthplace of your destiny. Every single day begins with a window of opportunity. A fragile, powerful moment where you decide whether you will lead your life or be led by it. The way you think, act, and speak to yourself in those first waking moments does far more than set the tone for your day. It shapes the very person you are becoming. Today, we're going to strip away the distractions, expose the traps, and rebuild your morning mindset into something unshakable. Because if you can win the morning, you can win the day, and if you can win the day, you can win your life. When you open your eyes in the morning, you're not just waking up to another day. You're setting the trajectory for the entire arc of your consciousness over the next 16 hours. That first thought, the one that creeps into your mind before you've even sat up, is not trivial. It's the seed from which your day grows. And seeds, as you know, don't remain seeds. They take root, they branch out, and they bear fruit. Whether good or bad depends on what you plant. Most people roll over, grab their phone, and scroll. That's the moment they hand over control of their mindset to someone else's agenda. The news cycle, the algorithm, the curated highlight reel of other people's lives. Within seconds, they've invited chaos into the one window of the day when their mind is most vulnerable to influence. They've told their subconscious, I am a passive consumer. I will start my day reacting rather than leading. And that becomes the undercurrent for everything that follows. Your first thought has an almost disproportionate influence because of the brain's morning chemistry. When you wake, your brain transitions from delta and theta waves, states of deep rest and subconscious processing, into alpha waves, which are highly suggestible. It's a liminal space between the dreaming and the waking world, and in that space your mind is like soft clay. Whatever impression you make then will harden as the day moves on. That's why a single anxious thought at dawn can make you irritable by noon, and why an intentional, disciplined thought can create an invisible backbone of strength that carries you forward. If you want to master your days, you need to master that moment. Before the noise, before the demands, before you even check the time, you must choose what you will allow into your mind. This is where personal sovereignty begins. Because if you cannot rule over your own thoughts when you're most susceptible, how do you expect to rule over your actions when the day becomes complex and stressful? Think about the first thing you say to yourself in the morning. For most, it's unconscious and negative. I'm tired. I don't want to get up. Today's going to be hard. That's not just commentary. It's a command to your psyche. You're programming your body to expect fatigue, to anticipate difficulty, to dread the very life you're meant to live. On the other hand, if you wake up and deliberately place a thought such as, I am awake, I am alive, and I am capable, you're giving your nervous system a signal to prepare for action, not retreat. This is not about naive optimism. It's about authorship. Every day is a page, and you are either the writer or the reader. If you wake up and let your first thought be dictated by habit or distraction, you're letting someone else hold the pen. But if you take just a few seconds, literally seconds, to choose the frame, you seize back authorship of the entire narrative. Now, some will say, but that's just one thought. How can it matter so much? That's like asking how the first domino matters in a chain. It matters because it's the one that tips the rest. A first thought is not isolated. It shapes your emotional state, which influences your actions, which determine your results. You can either start with a thought that empowers or one that undermines. But either way, the momentum will build in that direction. So tomorrow morning, when you wake, notice that instant between sleep and full awareness. That's your opportunity. Before you even move, place a thought there that you want to live in for the next 24 hours. Don't wait for motivation to show up. It rarely does uninvited. Create it. That's the quiet discipline of those who lead themselves. Because the truth is, the way you think when you open your eyes is often the way you will think when you close them again at night. And if you want to live a life you're proud of, it begins not in some distant goal, but in that tiny, sacred space between dreaming and doing. Guard it, shape it, own it. The first thought you choose each morning is the first brick in the foundation of your day, and you are the builder. The moment your feet hit the floor in the morning, you are faced with a choice so subtle most people don't even recognize it exists. Will I step into discipline, or will I default to comfort? The truth is, comfort whispers louder in those first moments than it will at almost any other point in the day. Your body craves warmth, your mind craves ease, and every part of you is looking for an excuse to delay action. That's why what you do immediately after waking matters so profoundly. Not because making your bed or doing 10 push-ups is life, changing in itself, but because those actions announce to your subconscious, I am in command here. We often think of willpower as some heroic burst of strength used in extreme situations, but in reality, it's forged in the mundane. It's forged when you push yourself to take purposeful action before the inertia of comfort can pull you back into passivity. The human mind has a remarkable ability to rationalize laziness. It will tell you, you deserve a few more minutes in bed, you can start later. It's not a big deal. But in that moment, you're not just deciding whether to lie down or get up. You're deciding who's in charge. Is it the part of you that seeks growth or the part of you that seeks escape? Action has a strange and powerful property. It changes your emotional state faster than thought alone. If you wait to feel ready, you're at the mercy of moods and fluctuations you can't control. But when you move first, whether that's making the bed, drinking a glass of water, stepping into a cold shower, or knocking out a set of push-ups, you bypass the negotiation process in your head. You're teaching yourself that your actions are not dependent on your feelings, and that lesson, repeated enough, becomes one of the most liberating truths a person can embody. There's a psychological concept called behavioral activation, often used in treating depression. The core idea is that doing something, anything constructive, often precedes the feeling of wanting to do it. In other words, you don't act because you're motivated, you become motivated because you act. The morning is the perfect training ground for this principle. If the first thing you do is something you don't necessarily feel like doing, you've already begun reprogramming yourself to prioritize what is necessary over what is comfortable. It's worth noting that this isn't just about productivity, it's about identity. Every small act of discipline you take in the morning is a brick in the structure of who you believe yourself to be. If you consistently start the day by choosing action over comfort, you begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who gets things done. And once you see yourself that way, your behavior begins to align with that identity in every area of life. On the flip side, if you start the day giving in to the path of least resistance, you plant seeds of hesitation that grow into indecision and procrastination later on. You don't just delay one task, you subtly erode your self-trust. And when you can't trust yourself to do the small things, the big things begin to feel impossible. So, what does immediate action look like? It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just has to be deliberate. Stand up as soon as your alarm goes off. Drink water before coffee. Move your body before you touch your phone. Make your bed before you think about the day ahead. None of these acts will win you a trophy, but they will win you something far more valuable: momentum. And momentum, once it's rolling, has a way of carrying you through the inevitable challenges and distractions that await. The mornings belong to those who move before they're ready. That's the great paradox. Readiness is not a prerequisite, it's a byproduct of movement. The people who achieve the most are not the ones who wait for the perfect emotional state to begin. They are the ones who start regardless of how they feel and let their actions create the state they need. If you want to fix your morning mindset, stop asking yourself what you feel like doing and start asking yourself what the version of you you're striving to become would do. Then do that immediately before comfort has the chance to bargain with you. Because every morning, in those first few minutes, you're not just choosing between the bed and the day. You're choosing between the self you're trying to escape and the self you're trying to become. The first hour of your day is not just another slice of time. It is the gateway through which every other hour will pass. And yet, most people leave that gateway unguarded, allowing anything and everything to walk right in. Notifications, breaking news, messages, social media updates. They flood the mind before you've even had the chance to decide what kind of day you want to have. You wouldn't leave the front door of your home open for strangers to wander in, so why would you leave the door to your mental space unlocked at the most critical point of the day? The truth is, your mind in the morning is like fresh snow. Whatever crosses it first leaves tracks that will remain for the rest of the day. If you allow noise, outrage, or someone else's problems to be the first marks, you've already surrendered control over the emotional tone of your life before you've even started living it. And this isn't just a matter of preference, there's neuroscience behind it. When you wake, your brain is transitioning through a delicate neurochemical balance. Cortisol levels are naturally higher, not in a harmful way, but in a way that primes you for alertness and readiness. Your focus is sharper, your ability to absorb information is heightened. This is why what you expose yourself to during that window embeds itself so deeply. If you feed it chaos, your nervous system will wire itself for reactivity. If you feed it clarity, you give yourself a foundation of calm, directed energy that can endure through the day's challenges. The problem is, modern life is engineered to hijack that clarity. Companies spend billions to ensure you look at your phone before you've even brushed your teeth. The world has mastered the art of invading your mind before you've had a chance to claim it for yourself. And if you don't have a strategy to defend that mental space, you will live in reaction mode, pulled from one emotional state to another by forces that do not care about your well-being. Guarding your first hour is not about becoming a hermit or ignoring reality. It's about setting boundaries that allow you to meet reality on your own terms. Imagine starting your day without opening your phone, without diving into email, without consuming anything that demands an immediate reaction. Instead, you begin with intention, reading something nourishing, journaling, exercising, or simply sitting in silence. These are not luxuries, they are acts of sovereignty. It's worth reflecting on the fact that the first hour after you wake is the only part of the day that belongs entirely to you, unless you give it away. Once you step into the noise, you can't unhear the bad news headline or unread the message that sparks irritation. You can't rewind the clock to reclaim that pure state of focus and calm. You only get one chance each day to decide what fills that space, and the consequences of that decision ripple outward into every interaction, every decision, every emotion that follows. Some will say they can handle the input, that checking the news or scrolling through feeds doesn't affect them. But that's often an illusion. The influence is subtle, and that's precisely why it's dangerous. It's in the tiny shifts of mood, the barely noticeable rise in tension, the slight shortening of patience. These micro changes add up, until by midday you're carrying an emotional weight you didn't even realize was placed on you in the first hour. So, the question becomes, who do you want to decide the tone of your day? You or the collective noise of the world? The first hour should be a negotiation with yourself, not with the demands of 1,000 other people. When you choose to guard it, you're not ignoring reality. You're preparing yourself to engage with it from a position of strength rather than weakness. There is a profound dignity in meeting the world only after you've met yourself first. Spend the first hour strengthening the walls of your mental fortress, and the storms of the day will not shake you as easily. The chaos will still come. It always does. But you will face it with the calm of someone who began the day in control, rather than someone who surrendered it before breakfast. Because the truth is, if you don't defend your mental space in the morning, you will spend the rest of the day trying to repair the damage. Better to start as the architect of your mindset than the victim of it. Every morning, before the world has fully woken up, you have an opportunity to declare to yourself who you are. Most people don't realize how important that declaration is because they live under the illusion that identity is something fixed, something given to them by their past, their circumstances, or the opinions of others. But the truth is, identity is not found, it is forged. And one of the most powerful forges is the language you use to speak to yourself at the start of the day. The words you choose in those first moments are not harmless. They are commands to your subconscious mind, and your subconscious is obedient to a fault. Tell yourself that you are tired, that you are overwhelmed, that today will be difficult, and your mind will search for evidence to make those words true. Tell yourself that you are capable, disciplined, and ready to meet the day, and your mind will just as diligently align your perceptions, emotions, and actions to fulfill that expectation. This is not about blind optimism or chanting hollow affirmations you don't believe. It's about taking responsibility for the narrative you allow to run in your head. Because if you don't write that script intentionally, it will be written for you by habit, fear, or the residue of yesterday's failures. The morning is the clean slate. Whatever you write on it will set the tone for the rest of the day. Psychologically, the human mind is drawn to consistency. We have a deep need to act in accordance with the way we see ourselves. If you wake up and say, "I'm disciplined," you create a small but powerful tension within yourself. If your actions later in the day contradict that statement, you'll feel the dissonance. And more often than not, you'll correct your behavior to match the identity you've claimed. In this way, deliberate self-talk is not just motivational fluff, it's a behavioral compass. But you must be careful here. Self-talk is a double-edged sword. It can elevate you or it can erode you. Think about how many people wake up and immediately diminish themselves. "I'm lazy, I can't handle this, I'm not a morning person." They repeat these phrases so often that they become self-fulfilling prophecies. The tragedy is that they are not describing their identity. They are creating it. You can't control every event that happens to you in a day, but you can control the lens through which you interpret those events. And that lens is often shaped before you've even had your first cup of coffee. When you use the morning to speak your identity into existence, you're essentially programming that lens. You're telling your mind how to interpret difficulty, how to respond to opportunities, and how to carry yourself in the world. Imagine two people starting the same day. One wakes up and says, "This is going to be exhausting. I'm not ready for it." The other says, "I'm strong enough to handle whatever comes. I will meet the challenges head on." Objectively, they may face the same obstacles, but subjectively, they live in completely different worlds. The first will experience the day as a burden, the second will experience it as a proving ground. And the difference between those two realities often comes down to nothing more than a few words spoken in the quiet moments of morning. Of course, there's a responsibility that comes with this. If you tell yourself you're capable, you have to act like it. If you tell yourself you're disciplined, you have to prove it. Words without corresponding action dissolve into self-deception, and your subconscious will stop taking them seriously. But when you back them up with behavior, when your actions confirm the story you're telling, you begin to shape not only how you see yourself, but also how others see you. This is why the morning matters so much. It's not just about mindset, it's about authorship. Every day you wake up, you're holding the pen, and the first sentences you write will influence the entire chapter that follows. You can write a story of hesitation, fatigue, and defeat, or you can write one of strength, clarity, and purpose. And here's the thing, no one else can write it for you. Speak your identity into existence, not as a wish, but as a decision. And then live in a way that proves you were telling the truth. Because if you don't decide who you are in the morning, the day will decide for you. And it rarely chooses in your favor.